Okay, welcome back. This is Devlog number 85, I believe. Yes, 85. Um, so I started this week. I started a little early this week. I went and opened up my project to-do list, and I kind of went through. I had already kind of organized pretty well what I was going to do after in my last project management session, what the plan was to take care of after level 2 construction. And I just went over it again and kind of really thought about it. I spent a couple hours. I didn't have to go really too crazy about it, but so I had already laid out a good roadmap past level 2, but I kind of just gave it one more go over and made sure what the next objectives are for the next 6 to 9 months. And I kind of really planned it out. I also went into detail with AI, and I was kind of like asking a bunch of questions and kind of clearing the air, clarifying my understanding about what does the end of the project look like, as far as what happens when the whole release process cycle. How long does that take? Um, um, yeah, how long does the release process take? What should I prepare for? What do I have to account for as far as to fit it in the 4-year cycle? I can't get to the end of 4 years and be like, okay, now I have to release it and realize it's going to take another year to release. So it's like this whole song and dance. Like it starts at up to a maximum of a year before. So like it's almost like if you thought you're going to do 4 years total development, it's almost like 3 years plus 1 year for the release phase. So that's what I came to understand. There's just a whole bunch of stuff that I hadn't considered, like um, things I kind of already knew, like making a Steam page, a demo, participating in Next Fest for market. There's like this whole marketing push that you have to go through at the end of the game. There's certain requirements you fill. It's kind of like when you're graduating from college, you have to dot all your T's and cross all your I's and make sure, because if you just launch a game with like no marketing push, like, and there's a lot of things you can do on your own, so you don't have to hire a big firm to do your marketing, but you want to at least take advantage of like the free indie marketing stuff that Steam and other channels provide. And you kind of want to just position yourself in a good position for release to capture as many fish as possible. You don't want to release your game to crickets. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of good things to know. So I kind of went into depth with AI and kind of like fleshed out my understanding and exactly. Because at this point it's like, what is an alpha? Well, alpha is basically it's actually before you hit the green button. Like alpha means like you're doing your final testing, no more features, but you're just testing it to stability for the final release before you push to beta. Beta is like the when you um, push to the community and you have beta testers. Like not early access. Early access is something different, but by the time you do Next Fest, you have like a little community, and those people will be willing to join and get free keys for them to play and give you feedback on your game in preparation for alpha. And they're going to find issues, so that's what the beta phase is for. You fix all the little beta phase stuff, and then finally after beta, it's the final release. And you kind of want to set a game release date and then stick to it, and that helps you with your promotion as well. But anyways, yeah, I really kind of roughed out like what does the end timeline look like the number of weeks and whatnot, and like accounting for all this release phase and last year, like what does that leave me with to actually develop the game? And there's still like, and from what I know, what the features I want to include right now, like it still gives me plenty of time, I believe. So not too worried there, but um, And yeah, I went through all that, did a lot of research, did a lot of planning for the next 6 to 9 months, the next couple epic legs. So what we have, so I'm pretty much chose to tackle like level 2 prototype stuff, and the first thing up is the new HK, um, the new HK AI. Is this guy here? He's a snake, and um, so that's what I'm tackle first, and the next epic is like level 2 prototype sequence or prototype stuff. So that means the HKAI, the toilet mech, and then the first boss sequence. So those three things, that I get into like prototype phase. So that's and then the next epic would be system stuff. We're talking about supporting different graphics, I guess. Like you go into the menu and you can change the resolution to however much you want, less you want. And there's a bunch of things that I kind of went over with AI again, like about what you should have um, as far as like standard uh, standard features in your menu, like like sound, like things I already know, like sound control, but other things that I'm not too sure of, like um, um, like remapping controllers and stuff like that. So I just kind of got a rough overview of that, but that's kind of the the second epic there, working on like the just the system functionality to kind of like have features for the game that most games have that you don't really think about. Just have like a standard set, um, like changing the language and stuff. So, um, part of the system I wanted to do, like now that I have 2 levels, I do like I can actually implement level transitions, make sure that it works with like the checkpoint system. Um, and then after that, I think I'm gonna hold that for the little bit more on the system. I think after I do like level 2 optimization, I'll come back and do like a game state save manager, like a better save manager to save and load persistent data for the game that revolves around um, yeah, when you pick up weapons and stuff. That kind of it's just more robust. Right now I have simple persistence, but something that can actually handle a little bit more to save data, like um, but that'll come later when I'm ready to do um, game level 2 gameplay, I suppose. But that's way on down the line. Another epic is player features, more player features, which is melee attack prototype. And there's just like a handful of issues that I have to fix for the character controller that I've kind of. So nothing too much there. Gameplay, new gameplay features, which is like the crystal collection for weapon and shield upgrades, and then prototyping upgrade screen UI for that. And then the next epic is AI version. Well, I have to kind of fill out. I made a bunch of enemies, but I made them be able to do simple things like patrol and stuff, but I didn't give them full feature. Like, I kind of left that to, which I'm actually doing now, but I have to go in and every new enemy, I have to go in and make sure they have full set of features, the meaning they can chase, attack, do melee attacks, whatever specifically they're kind of missing, whether there's animations or anything like that. So make sure they're ready to go to be used in the game. Where I left off, I simply had this one enemy kind of fully fleshed out, and I need to do that for the rest of the enemies that I'm going to have in the game. So Um, and then it's a couple small other things. But after I do that, that'll probably take a bit. The first part is, the first part doing the HK AI, the toilet mech, and the first boss sequence, that'll probably take a while to get done. But once I get everything else done, it's pretty much back to level one, the third pass, which is level one gameplay testing, which pretty much means like this is the last pass of level one where you have to go in and pretty much make the level as pretty much close to what will be released as you possibly can. Like anything that needs to be added, we're talking about like, sound effects or, making sure checkpoints. We're talking about like all the enemies that are going to be in that level should be there and supported. Like, and then, any cutscenes or dialogue or anything like that, like the level one should play like as close as possible to um, what will be released in the final version. So that said, there will probably be one more pass on level one, but it'll be more fine tuning in the context of testing the entire game as a whole. I might have to change a bunch of smaller things around to kind of fit. I'll get this weapon later, or this that kind of fits in the context of the entire level as a whole. But that the level one gameplay is the last major push where it's like you're doing the gameplay testing and balancing, like how many enemies, exactly how it should be, how it should feel. So that's the meat and potatoes. Like not the level construction, not the functionality of the game, adding enemies and all that, but literally like the gameplay within the level. So that's gonna be the major chunk of work that I get 6 to 9 months for, and then it's on. Then it's back on to like level two optimization, and the cycle will pretty much repeat itself. Where once I get that done, I'll come back and take care of anything I need to take care of for this and that. But that's now we're getting past the 6 to 9 month roadmap, and I can't even see that far. But the point is I have a fair chunk of work to do for this next leg of the project. So pretty much got approval on the next 6 to 9 months of the project. I got to get a roadmap of what I need to do, and I'm just getting started. So at the beginning of the week, I picked up where I left off on the connecting up each of these scenes to make sure that when you go across a scene transition, it'll load the new scene and unload the last scene. And there were a few hiccups, a few cases, especially with this new fog, like especially with like elevation. I had that. Oh, what happened here? Oh, okay. Yeah, I had that issue with the elevator again, where if you set the player's position too high or too low, the invector system will take over and call it as a fall damage and kill you. But I was able to sort that out. It just took some figuring out, and I solved those bugs. So, that being said, yeah, it took like Monday and Tuesday until I was wanting to get on to the first new feature prototype stuff of the HK Snake, but it actually took a while because what happened, I went through and did all the scene connections, but I decided to go through once more from the beginning of the level and kind of go from sector to sector with a sharp eye and kind of pick out anything that needed to be fixed. And there was actually a couple things. It was not as bad as level one, but there was a couple prefabs that got kind of broken, like a bench size or something, and I kind of had to. So anything I spotted sector to sector, and I just went in and really thoroughly tested walls and stuff, and anything And I actually found a fair few amount of things per scene, per sector. Most of it was actually in the first couple levels. I had not tested the actual widescreen support for the VCam, so a lot of the edges were bleeding over. Like you could see, things like this on the side, and I kind of had to remedy that here and there. But so that kind of took a couple days to go through a final pass of the level and make sure everything was squared away. I also added, because I only added like accent lights to these emissions in the last couple scenes, so I had a chance to go back and add some accent and lights to the neon in the first couple scenes as well too. So everything's kind of cohesive and looking pretty good. So, and while I was doing that, I tested the scene connections one more time, back and forth for each scene, just to make sure everything's good, and it was looking good. So I wrapped up the final stamp of approval on level 2 construction. It's all in the bag now. That took a couple days to do, and then I started in on the first new feature of the Epic, which is the snake hunter killer enemy. And I was kind of spending a little time like kind of brainstorming like the wider picture, like how is this AI gonna behave? And I was thinking of like an AI director and kind of doing like a grid. So just a rough overview and imagination of the functionality architecture where you're running around kind of like the rain grid, and like depending on where you are, I'll have to flesh this out more as I go. This is just like a rough idea, but if you're on a grid, then kind of like the AI director will know your general vicinity, and he'll report like kind of to the snake, where you are. So the snake is a different kind of AI where he doesn't really patrol. He doesn't have like a waypoint patrol. What he does, he kind of like, he just gets hits from the AI director and sets the waypoints, and then he goes to that waypoint, and then from that waypoint he might, patrol and wander randomly from that point, like trying to find you. So it's really like a game of hide and seek, and basically in these sectors, I'm gonna make it so like there's like a couple key points, like, and they might just randomly, you have to get like 3 keys or something, and they kind of randomly spawn, and you kind of have to figure out which ones are where, and they'll spawn like one's over here, one's at the other end of the map, one's up here, and once you get 3, then you can make your way back to the elevator and escape. So that's the gameplay, but that's the idea here. So so Monday and Tuesday, so the first step was obvious. I had to kind of take the snake and make him into from the base model. I had to give him the treatment like I did with all the others. I had to make sure that he had my own custom AI controller on there, and his own custom animator, and other things. And I did the same thing where I just put the same behavior agent just so he could test out like basic patrolling and whatnot. And yeah, it surprisingly, it looks pretty good. I was going over the animations and stuff, and one of the things I noticed a problem with his animations, like he has a very limited set of animations, but I'm gonna have to work with them instead of doing my own animations. But one of the things is that his tail, in his moving animation, when he turns, it sticks out straight, and his whole body turns, but his tail kind of goes in a straight wide arc, and it doesn't look very natural. And I was like, I need to do something about that. Well, what I found is like this package where you can actually, it's kind of like IK. You can apply like IK to this section of the tail, and it'll actually make it look like he'll be moving and stuff, but the tail will kind of act independently and kind of slither or whatever. You know how the tail goes? It goes back. It kind of zigzags back and forth. And instead of like when he turns, like his tail clips into the environment, it can actually behave organically and with colliders and like hit the wall or whatever it needs to do. While the rest of his body will be the animation, but the tail will be kind of like this dynamic collider IK that kind of wants to do a slithering motion while he's moving. So I think that'll look a lot better. So that package will definitely do a lot of good. What else? Um, so what I was doing, yeah, so I was planning out the new gameplay for the Hunter Killer, um, and what I was trying to do. So once I got the basic, that I usually do for the new snake, he can patrol, he can whatever, basic. He's intact and he has his own animations out of the box. Okay, he's in his basic form. What I then kind of turned to was thinking about I kind of turned back to my overall AI controller solution in general. Um, I kind of addressed this before when I was adding more enemies. I kind of noticed, okay, I need to have like an architecture for these different enemies, and because not all enemies behave the same, or not all AI controllers behave the same. For instance, this one, my assumption is built, he's just a ranged. He has a gun. He doesn't do any melee attacks. He's just a ranged. This one is an NPC. So this one's like a combat AI, so he can engage you, shoot at you, attack you, detect you, do patrols and stuff. But this little NPC here, he needs to have a bunch of stuff like the AI controllers, like the base functionality, but he doesn't. He patrols, but he doesn't chase. He doesn't attack. He's just an NPC. So he has a more limited set of abilities. And I was able to like structure a class hierarchy. Well, this runs without all the overhead and functionality that a full combat AI like this one has. So that way he uses only the functionality he needs, and this one can actually share functionality through the class inheritance. And so he can patrol just as well as the bug. So, and there's other differences too, like this guy is a melee only. He doesn't shoot at all. So it's like he doesn't need functionality for like, aiming and everything like that. Like he's just, he's a different kind of, he's a combat melee AI. So, and then yet again, I'm introducing another one here, which is an HK AI. He shares a bunch of functionality like idle and attacking and chasing and all that stuff, but he doesn't really patrol in the same way as a combat AI. He kind of works on a different system. So I needed to, it's like I've already got the code part down where I can abstract and share correctly. I got the hierarchy down, but the problem is the actual behavior. So I'm using like behavior graph or enemy behavior graph here. And I did this whole thing just for one AI, and it really describes like a full-fledged cycle of like switching between states. And I got it pretty good to where I want it, but I have to admit, like at the end, like it's starting to get like really hairy, like with a lot of redundant, it seems. Like it just became very monolithic, but I tested this all out to be functional, and pretty decent quality. I had to make um, some tweaks and changes or whatever, but all in all, it actually functions pretty well. The good news is I got like this model down. Like this is like the second iteration, so it's refined even more and better than the first one. But the bad news I found out is when I tried to, my idea was to take this and kind of like what you do with like a parent class, you build on top of it. So I was kind of doing the same thing with the new whatchamacallit, the new hunter killer snake or whatever. And so I was messing around with a new concept called subgraphs, and I heard about it before, and I thought it had promise, and that's kind of where I went with this. So like you had the promise of being able to subgraph functionality and reuse it in a way, that would allow you to kind of componentize this behavior instead of having to like literally um, build the same identical functionality, like say for patrol or something, and maybe you miss something. You don't want to duplicate this in another. Yeah, you don't want to duplicate this. You want to be able to reuse it. Well, I tried doing a subgraph in this, and the problem was it. I got it to work. All you have to do. Let's see if I can actually. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I got this new graph going, and so I plugged in the enemy behavior subgraph as a child, and in order to get it going, you have to pretty much identically have um, the same blackboard burials. Otherwise, you get errors and it doesn't work. But if you have the exact same, it'll pull from it and work. The only problem is you can't really see it running at this point. You're not getting, when you press play, you're not seeing, you can't click into it. You can't go into another behavior graph and see it running there. You can't hook it up to debug. I found its limitations. It's like, oh crap. So I can run I can kind of modularize, but I can't see what's going on, and you know, it's not ideal. Like I'm just like, okay, like unless you want to run blind, it just like can't really you know um but anyways, I'm thinking about it. 1 second. Yeah, so the main problem is like you can't really see how it's running if you need to debug, and that's like a major problem. Like even if I was to like cut this up into smaller and just have like a small little patrol subgraph, like if something went wrong with it, like I couldn't test it in isolation. I couldn't just see that, oh, this is not, it's cycling back and forth. Like I'd be absolutely blind to it. I couldn't figure out how to fix it. So in theory, you can run modular subgraphs, but it doesn't have the necessary features to kind of debug. And the other problem is too, with this graph, I found like you can actually select and duplicate, but when you duplicate over, all the arrows are messed up. So you have to go in and kind of manually connect the arrows back up in the right place, and manually fix everything, and it's kind of a pain. And then sometimes you misclick and one of these gets messed up, and you have to go trace down the freaking where it's going wrong, and it's just a big hassle. And this thing is extremely slow too. Like the bigger your graph gets, like if you add like a new node, Unity likes to like recompile every time, so it's very painstaking to add new stuff to it. It's not very quick and fast. It's just like you just build this huge monolithic thing. And so this whole thing, like it allowed me to do a second version of my enemy behavior and understand it better and refine it better. And the first version was doing the invector FSM, and that was like a state machine, and that kind of like allowed to circle back on itself, and it was kind of a mess because it was like harder. It was, at least it was visual, but it was kind of hard to debug. This one was much easier to debug because everything is like laid out in clear states, and they all flow in linear branches. They don't circle back on each other or jump around. You can clearly tell what's going on at any given moment. And that's what I like about these behavior trees. Um, but the Blackboard has its limitations. You can't just copy a section over and then go to a new graph and then paste it in here. Like, it's very limited, and, you know, it's just like, it has all the functionality, but it just doesn't have that ability to properly subclass um, common behavior across different types of AI classes. So I was kind of like, dang, it's like a brick wall. What do I do? So I did some research, and I was looking around, and I came up with this package called it's called Behavior Designer, and basically it's a couple bucks, but basically it's the same. It's almost the same thing as um, the uh, Unity's behavior graph, but it's a little bit different of a system. So I was kind of reluctant because I don't want to spend any money on stuff. It's been hit. Some of these are hit or miss, but this is pretty well tested. And I was watching the demo videos, and and one of the big selling points was the ability to do these subgraph things, where when you're running, you can actually, I think they had a video or something. It kind of showed it laying out dynamically, but what actually happens is this runs. You can see the green areas of where it's doing, kind of like you do in behavior graph. It doesn't look half as nice, and I was reluctant because it's third party. I'd rather have first party, but this was kind of the situation where, what was it? Unity has its own first-party IK solution, but it's not full-featured and robust. It's very limited. I needed the final IK to really get done what I needed to get done, and that's pretty much what this package does for me. It's like, it allows you, most importantly, to connect these subtrees, but most importantly, when you're running it, you can click into the subtree and see um, you can see the actual thing, yeah, the actual path it's taking. Just like if this had a behavior graph like this, you could actually click in and see and debug at runtime the actual flow, and if everything's going correctly. So that's the big feature this one was missing, and that for me was the whole thing. Like, because the big problem uh, that I was going to run into. So let's just say I had four different types, and it could expand. Like, I have, or maybe even five. I have the shooter, the NPC, the HK, and the melee, and then I have a fifth one, which is a boss, right? And they all share a couple similar ones. Like, some of them have attack, some of them don't have attack, some of them have shooting, some of them don't have shooting. And how do I manage a system like of five separate enemy AI class types, right? It's obvious as an engineering perspective, I can't go in here and make a big monolithic behavior graph for each enemy type. And why can't I do that? Well, since I can't even copy this over directly and just paste it into an HK type class, I can't do that. So I'd have to sit here and build pretty much node for node this whole patrol and any other state that the HK needed. Well, And then just imagine that I did that for all five of them because all five have patrol or something like that. Well, what happens if I find a bug in one of them? Let's just say this guy, I find a bug in this patrol logic. I need to change something, fix a bug. Well, now I have to go in to every single AI type and I have to make sure I go through that one and test that one as well and fix that bug and so on and so forth. And then you multiply that by each state that they're in. And then to add on to everything, there could be a little bit of variation. And say I just decide, I'm gonna add a little variation. I'm not fixing a bug. I'm just gonna add a little variation to the HK patrol. He's gonna do something a little different. Oh, that's cool. Well, now every other enemy type doesn't follow that same logic, so they start to diverge. Like I can't have a system like that where it just spirals out of control. It doesn't. It's like not using inheritance or prefabs pretty much in your code or in the right. Yeah, it's like I need to be able to share common behavior, and when I make changes, it's reflected in all other uh, objects that share that behavior graph. So it's like thinking about it like I was hoping this behavior graph could handle that um, with running these subgraphs, but the big killer was not being like I really didn't want to have to redo my work. I don't want to move to a new system. I don't want to have to go and learn a new system. You know, um, but I can't. At the same time, so I had to make a decision. Like at the same time, I can't have. It's like I need modular shared behavior, but I can't. I can't have modular shared behavior without being able to visualize it. That defeats the purpose, right? The whole point of the behavior graph is to see in real time, connect to the debug, and see how the state is flowing in real time. And it's like you can have one or the other here. You can have modular shared behavior, but you can't have visual. And so that's not gonna work. So I needed this package which offers both, right? And basically, this allows you to pretty much do the same thing. Now, the system is a bit different. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but I was able to have several wins. My whole goal for the end of the week was to prove this concept, prove this prototype that I just needed a basic building block. Like my goal was to implement and understand to a point where I could um, I could implement several of these subgraphs and share them between different parent graphs, right? And there is a whole thing where like having to figure out how to use this new package. So by Thursday, it really was an uphill battle, like trying to figure out this new package. Um, I was able to. So the first day on Thursday, it was really an uphill battle trying to just get the basic functionality working, trying to learn how like these new concepts, like what are these? These are shared variables. Like I pretty much had to relearn how to do. I had to spend all this time learning how to do this system, like how to write actions, how to write conditions, how to, which nodes to use and whatnot. And I'm pretty much forced to do the same thing with this, where it's just like, how does this whole thing work? Where it's like, it's very, very similar. In fact, it almost works mostly the same way. There's just this weird thing that I'm still trying to figure out about how selectors and sequences work. It kind of works from like a left to right fashion, almost like the behavior graph does, but there's no like nodes like and or branches. They have conditionals and actions, but I'm still trying to learn the ins and outs. But I just I had like a on Thursday I got the basic building block where I could just turn a toggle on and switch. I had to figure out because it doesn't. Again, it doesn't have a nice little node that it's called the enum node where you plunk it down and you just hook up a enumeration state and it will um, it will give you all the states and you just connect it up from there. I had to figure out how you're supposed to do that in Behavior Designer, and it's basically like a conditional read. And this guy he doesn't have nice things like being able to have drop downs for enum, so you kind of have to translate it to numbers and stuff. So I was really testing and prototyping this. Um, um, yeah, so I was testing and prototyping this and trying to figure out how to make it work. And at the end of Thursday, it was like an uphill battle, but I finally got a couple custom conditionals written. So when I played it, I can actually switch a toggle and switch between the um, um, I can switch between the two states. I can show that it's actually switching states because I didn't want a bunch of like inline ifs. I actually wanted a state switching based on behavior state. So okay, so and then on Thursday or on Friday, I had one final push. My goal was to be able to get subtrees working and then get that working as a concept between two shared two different two different AI types, right? So I was able to get the one AI type here. We got an NPC tree, and then we have the minion tree. Right now they look pretty much the same, but um, yeah, they're pretty much identical. But it just gives the proof of concept that they are different parent trees, and they're reading from they're sharing these subtrees, patrol and idle. And I had to figure out how to actually create these subtree assets and actually hook them up properly. At first, I had like a report. The subtree would make changes, but the subtree has to be kind of like agnostic. It doesn't know anything about the parent, so it has to report back something like it can't assume that it knows like the enumerated index of its parent because the parent could have a different behavior enumeration index. It just had so the it has to like it has to change like a behavior state string, and then the parent has to kind of like based off that on the cycle, it has to read that string and interpret what that means. So most of the time it's straightforward, but it could mean something different. So the parent has to interpret the context of the child, but the child contains all the sub logic of that behavior. So it has to kind of do things like for patrol, it has to check the waypoints, make sure it's enabled. There's several things in order to get the AI actually patrolling along. So I had to kind of go through my original implementation, clean up a bit, and by the end of Friday, I was actually able to get these two AIs patrolling along separate waypoints, sharing the same behavior. And the cool thing was that so I instead of setting up a new behavior graph and like I did with HK and like constructing every single node painstakingly and identically for the patrol process as a copy, I was actually able just to drag select copy from the one and then paste over into here. And then I just had to hook up a couple things like these references, but for the rest of it was pretty much the same. And it's just like it took me like 2 minutes to actually, create a new um, parent subtree for a new AI type. And that's how it really shines. So now that these were both working and sharing, like what happened was I was doing some testing and then I was just like, oh, okay, well, this is not working correctly. Let me add something here and fix the patrol, right? Because I don't want it going to the idle stage each time he hits a new patrol point. Well, if I had done the copy route, now I'd have to fix it in the bug or any other AI, and it's just like on and on it goes. So it's like working with a prefab, you know. It's how it should be, how it needs to be, and I just couldn't have that. I couldn't have that kind of thing in this behavior graph. Like it just doesn't have what's required. So now I can have this true modular behavior graph. I can visually debug the runtime process of the AI and also make changes, and it'll affect everyone that shares these subgraphs. So that's really what I was going for. So I've kind of proved the concept this week, and it was a real uphill battle. Like I don't, it's like, but I knew it was the right way to go because like I can't just oh I'm only gonna have four different AI types, so I can just copy it over and stuff like that. That would just make my system impossible to manage as the more it grows. Like I need a proper architecture. It's coming from like an engineering background. Like you don't want to do it that way. It's just a bad idea. So now we have prefabs, class hierarchy, and um, uh, behavior tree visual debugging for our game. So it's the proper architecture, but unfortunately, I have to go back through this monolith and kind of reconstruct and retest. But I can build this functionality again, and the good news is that I can properly share it across all my different AI types or whoever needs it. And from there, I can actually have divergences based off the type. So, the treasure bug. One of the cool things is like, um, let's just say he was attacked. Like, the divergence would be I could send from the child say if you were attacked, but the parent would be like, oh, attacked. What is my chosen behavior going to be when the state is attacked? Well, the treasure bug can actually go to the behavior of flee, while in this other graph, um, if he's attacked, he goes to the state of chase or attack or whatever, alerted. They have different behaviors, but they share the same common one. So it's really cool. It just takes a bunch of learning. I've kind of halfway figured out how to use this properly, like sequences and selectors. But as soon as I wrap my head around it, then I can really start rebuilding the functionality. But I've kind of got down how to connect up, how this system works, how to connect up the different references and whatnot, and between the subtrees and the main tree, and how this all works. So I'm pretty far along, but there's still a couple things as far as like the proper construction of these nodes in order to make it work properly. So there's more work to be done, but I was able to test around and get this basic patrol working for both of them. Like this thing about abort type, it's kind of like one of the issues was that if one of these fail, like how do you stop a running process, right? So he's moving to the target, this is running. If one of these fail, I want the move to target to fail, and the trick was the abort type. So it's just things like that. But the support's fine. There's nice videos. You can figure out how to do it. It's just going to take a little bit more to kind of figure out a process and a way to construct it in the way I'm thinking about. But like I have to admit, like there's better ways to do this. Like this graph was becoming very monolithic because like I had these, instead of using events to interrupt and change state, I was using like these inline checks for every state, and like so basically every state had to check like several times along the way whether they're attacked or not in order to interrupt, and that shouldn't be how it works. It should be like a global event. Like if you were attacked, it should break you out of whatever state you're in and set you to whatever state you need to be. So it was just getting pretty hairy at the end. So it definitely could do with one more revision, doing it the final way, the right way, with AI's guidance. It's not AI is not superior, like knows exactly. It kind of you kind of have to second guess it sometimes. It kind of sometimes it doesn't know what's talking about 100%, or it gives you code that's like 90% correct, but for the most part, it's reasonably helpful and kind of help guiding me along to figure out this. But you still have to kind of watch the videos because the videos give you a better, more comprehensive picture, and AI doesn't. It can give you like some correct details about how it works, but sometimes it's not. It doesn't know the inner workings as well as the documentation or the actual tutorial video. So it's just kind of the process where you have to, I have to learn a new package, a new system framework, and plus I have to redo work again that I've already done and tested out. But the issue was I didn't know that the limitations of the behavior graph until I ran into them, and it's like a tough choice I had to make. So there'll be some work to do that to rebuild this, but now I'll have a system that will actually support what I'm trying to do here, and save me a lot of maintenance time in the long run for sure. Um, so so other than that, there's a couple of things I noticed. There's an ongoing thing with the AI where there's these like little edges here, like if it's weird because if the AI hits even the slightest bit of slope, it just totally stalls. It can't get over it. There's some issue there. There's a lot of little polished things, but I think this next leg is really going to be focused on getting the AI architecture and the behavior all in line and up to scratch, as well as the new HK AI system. So um, it was kind of an uphill battle week, but we definitely um, we actually, it doesn't feel, so I can't give a demo of the week. It doesn't feel like I made a lot of progress that I can show, but what I did, I did a lot of other work that'll assist in good things to come, and then in the weeks to come. Like next week, you'll really see it kind of take shape again. So it doesn't feel like I have anything to show for it this week, but I did do a lot of darn work. Um, what else was happening around here? Oh, um, so on Friday I opened up the project, and I don't know what was going on. My project has been very intermittent lately. Like it just frequently crashes, and it frequently stalls out. It frequently freezes. It's just like I'm trying to piece it together, but I don't know what happened. Whereas like just one day, like on Friday, I opened it up and it's just like the loading reloading domain white box popped up and it stayed there for like 10 minutes, until I kind of, and I'm constantly having to like restart the computer. Um, it still crashes periodically because it runs out of memory or whatever, but if some reason this main project it's just become completely unstable and just like very, and I thought it was like Unity or whatever, like oh they updated, or Windows. I just can't tell. But like on that Friday, it was like the project is completely. I got it after restarting. I got it running again, but then I tried doing something like changing, getting to work, and then the box would pop up again. It's like reloading domain for like 5 minutes, and it's just like oh my gosh. So I kind of got blocked from progressing as far as I wanted to, just because of, system unity issues. I was kind of like borderline panic inducing, but I kind of uh, whatchamacallit, calmed myself, and I kind of tackled the problem. I started with I went over to my alt project, and that was, that's what it's there for. And I did a pull from main, a clean pull, and yeah, it was the alt project was running smooth. It was compiling, and it wasn't hanging and not crashing. Um so I kind of spent time rebuilding from there. I had done some work with the HK that I didn't save, the snake. I had made the prefab, so I kind of had to go in and do some git work. And this happens from time to time. I kind of had to rebuild step by step, and kind of salvage the work that I did do as much as possible, and kind of rebuild to kind of where I was before that, before everything went to hell. And I was kind of doing work on the alt branch, and at the same time, I was making sure that my backups were up to date, and I decided to actually uh, just dump the my main project. That main project I've had since the beginning, from the very beginning. So I don't know, when I decided to like delete it, it was like 200 gigabytes. It must have had some sort of like just putting the project should be around 70 gigabytes pulled from the repo, but this thing has like a massive bloated 200 gigabytes. I don't know if Unity just starts stuffing the project with extra garbage files or what, but anyways, I got things stable on the the alternate project, and I got that pushed to main and everything. And then what I did was, step by step, stable, clean, and then I actually downloaded um, uh, a fresh, clean project from the repo to start with. This time it's not called Indie Game, it's called Zenith. The game actually deserves a title now. Um, and um, on Friday, I put in time, a couple hours actually sorting out random issues with a new project. There's a period of like loading and compiling textures and all that. But once I sorted through the common issues, like the handful of issues, I had to kind of reinstall a couple packages, sort out a couple ASM issues, but I eventually got the project up and running again. And this time, my main project has a name, and I don't see or experience any of the hangs or the crashes or anything like that anymore. So I have a clean working project, main project again. So everything's back in order, everything's stable. So I had to do a bunch of git work, and this happens from time to time where I have to kind of salvage and recoup. But I got it back to stable ground again, and we're all good for me. My last bout is when I had to upgrade to 6.4. That was a real battle to get the project back to stability again. But so we're back again. So it's little sidetracks, little diversions that happen like that. Um, that you have to take care of. It's part of things. But we should be good to go for a while if the project doesn't get fried again. That's why we have Git repo. That's why we have clean commits, and that's why, because I think back in the day my Xcode projects, I had to after a while I had to dump the projects. They would just get corrupted, and you have to start fresh from the repo and get a new project going. It's just what happens between versions over time, and that's kind of what happened here. But one of the last things I did that I want to talk about was, well, two things. When I was rebuilding the Zenith project, the main project, I decided to finally pull the trigger and remove the XR package and functionality from the project. That wasn't too painful. I don't think I broke anything seriously. Like maybe something will come up, but I was trying to be careful. But it was just mainly like some game manager logic, but and just removing a bunch of uh, using references and whatnot to get it to compile. But so there's so now it's gone, and I that's pretty much it. Like at this point I'm not going to be supporting. I'm not going to be supporting VR functionality at all for this game probably. Like unless I was a part of a company or I owned a big company and we really wanted to take that dive, we thought it was a good market opportunity to dive into VR and produce something like Moss or something. It would have to be a deliberate choice to support VR, or it just made sense. Like you have an engine and you're doing a third person or a first person, you can easily you've designed the game from the ground up where you can easily port it to a VR support. But for my game, that's just not possible, especially as a solo developer. It's just not going to happen, not for this project. So it's gone. It was an interesting foray. I thought I could continue and support it or support it one day, but it's just not going to happen. So it was just taking up space, and it just got it's one of the things it's got to go. So at this point in the project, it's done for. So that was one thing. Fix that up, and the other thing was the actual I don't know what it was. I was doing something, and I was like. I was like at this point I'd had enough with Invector's you can see Invector's system stuff. Like this is what it looks like out of the box. It looks okay. It's pretty, it looks nice, but the problem with this, it gets in the way of you adding custom stuff, right? And one of the big problems I was having is if I was doing like different class inheritance, um, I couldn't just add new stuff like Waypoint, right? Here's a good example, Waypoint. I couldn't just if I had a higher class like Biomutant or enemy shooter controller or whatever, I couldn't just say, "Hey, Vector, pop in these new variables into this tab." It wouldn't work like that. It wouldn't show up or whatever because some weird thing with their system. So um, what I'd have to do is I'd have to make a new tab and say, waypoint IG or waypoint this level class, and you just get all these redundant tabs that it's already large enough. And the fact that I had multiple tabs that have to do with waypoint, one for the Invector, one for my own stuff on top of that, it was just not cutting it. I really had to consolidate. So I didn't go in and really organize like sometimes I have to do, but I went in and removed all the Invector GUI stuff and then replaced it all with Odin Inspector, just like my game manager. Because game manager is uh, is ultimate, where you can just you can with Odin Inspector you can scale as much as you want really. Um, so I gave that the game manager Odin Inspector treatment, and I'm happier for it because now I've got I didn't do a lot of organization, but I just made sure it was functional with Odin Inspector. So everything's basically the same area it was, except now that it's kind of in its own section and consolidated within the same tab, so I don't have to go searching through different tabs or what I'm looking for. So now I can organize later as I see fit, um, um, and that's much better. I was meaning to do that for a while. It was getting to be too big of a mess and too hard to, especially when I'm starting to work with AI stuff. It's just more pain than it's worth. When I did that, I realized that I actually since these share a common parent class, I actually busted the character controller. It wasn't rendering or displaying. So I just, what I did here is I went and I removed all the invector stuff for this, but now you can see everything is in this huge long class, and I have to go in through here one by one and make sure they're sorted appropriately into tabs. Some of these lower or these higher level ones are inherited from vector and they're already in here, but I have to go in and do the rest that are the lower level children, sort them appropriately. So it gives me a good idea of the scope of the controller systems, but that's just when I'm using the character again, I'll get around to that. But this next leg of the project development is really focused around new AI features and functionality and getting the AI inheritance, behavior, logic, all kind of in order and how they should be in a proper system, not like duplicated functionality copied over, but shared, abstracted, you know, clean, organized, like how a good system should be. I'm not gonna sit here and hack up a bunch of duplicate functionality and have a big monolithic disaster for like a bunch of different types of enemies. It's not gonna happen. So um, yeah, definitely a lot to talk about this week. Not too much to show, but like a lot of planning, a lot of thinking, um, like what does the end process look like far on down the line? A lot of, planning for the next 6 to 9 months, and then beginning and starting to refactor uh, the um, the behavior graph for the enemy AI. So I think I'm about talked out, but I've probably spoken for about an hour here. Yeah. But yeah, I don't have much more to talk about uh, or cover for this week, so I'm gonna wrap it up here, and we'll see you next time.